All right, we're going to start up in just a minute. I foolishly this morning got a message on my machine telling me that I had updates, and I did it, and it locked up my machine for 20 minutes. I don't know why, but it did. So I'm just getting my stuff ready. So it'll take me about 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll start up. All right, well, I'm going to get going. We'll just do the best we can here. So. Believe I'm recording, and let's turn on the share. So now you should be able to see what we're going to be going over today, and that is we're going to be going over the extra exercises and the short exercises for chapters 6 and 7. All right, as I always do when we start out in the morning, again, welcome to day 45. As it says, today we'll go over the short exercises and the extra exercises. Tomorrow, I'm going to go and redo the guessing game, the MPG program, and the BMI program at a minimum. And I'm going to redo those using the stuff we learned with the document object model in chapter 6. And we'll talk a little bit about timers that we talked about in chapter 7. All right. Wednesday will be your hands-on test. Now, it's going to be a little bit different. I am going to give you from Wednesday to Sunday to work on it. Wednesday will be a lab. Originally, I was going to have Wednesday and Thursday be a lab, and then I was going to lecture on Friday. You may or may not be aware of this, but usually about 1 or 2 days a month, Rankin has what's called Shadow a Tech Days. And on those days, a student can come in and actually watch a class. Well, typically they don't come into mine because it's online. But on Thursdays, I do go into Rankin, and I have had a request from a student to come in and watch in class. And that's the reason that I'm going to lecture on jQuery stuff on Thursday, and then Friday will be another lab day. So you'll have all day, all period Wednesday. I'll send you the test at 7. We'll go over it for 15 minutes as we always do. You'll have the rest of the period Wednesday to work on it and all period Friday to work on it. All right. And as it says here, on Thursday, again, we'll start going over the jQuery material. Maybe we'll only do 2 chapters. I don't know, but it's 8, 9, 10, and 11. Whatever we don't finish on Thursday, we will finish the following Monday on the 6th. Then we're going to build a website as a class. It's meant to be a code along. You don't have to turn it in or anything, but it's going to really go over a lot of the stuff we've covered all semester, including the jQuery material. All right, I don't know if we can do that in 2 days, 3 days. I don't know how long that'll take. I've got it done already. So basically, like I said, it'll be a code along for all of you. All right. And after that, we're going to go back to the book and we're going to finish the book up, that being 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. All right, the last couple chapters that are in there, we won't cover until like the last week of class. All right, so your chapters 4 and 5 test was due already. Okay, so hopefully you've turned that in. Hopefully you've turned in the written tests, that should say tests, and homework that were due last week. Again, your chapters 6 and 7 hands-on test will be due by next Sunday coming up, as will your chapter 6 written tests and homework. All right, so with that said, let's just get right into it. Let's take a look at what's in here. So we're going to start with the material that's in here in chapter 6. And I don't want to sit and read to you, but ideally what this is there are two radio buttons here. When you click the radio button that's chosen right now, then this will say enter F degrees, meaning Fahrenheit, and this will show you the degrees Celsius. When you click the other button, it'll be the reverse. So it'll say enter C degrees, degrees Fahrenheit. All right. If you put in something invalid, all right, you'll get this. And I believe in here they're going to ask us to only enter a temperature that's between like negative 100 and positive 212. At least that's what I'm going to do. All right. Now, there is some beginning stuff that's in here, but I'm just going to write the whole thing from scratch. All right. Why? Because I don't typically code exactly the way that they code that Murat codes. So in other words, when I come in here, when we look, we've got, well, I don't know why there's MPG. There's no, let's see, exercise is short. Great. There is no temperature in here. Well, let's see if there's a temperature in one of these other ones, and we'll grab that and really go from the beginning. No. All right. You know what? Heck with it. I'll write the whole darn thing from the beginning, including the HTML. That's fine. I wasn't going to do that, but we'll do that anyway. All right. That's kind of a waste of my time and kind of a waste of your time, but I want, because I think it's important enough, and the HTML that's in here is not long. So let's just come right back in here, and where we are right here. All right, I'm going to start this by creating another folder right here. So we've got an MPG, we've got a test scores. All right, I'm going to make another folder right here that I'm just going to call temperature. All right, so there that is. And I'm going to start by coming in here and creating a new file on the index.html file here. All right. And I'm also going to come in to temperature here, and I'm going to add a new folder that's going to be called JS for JavaScript. All right. And we will just call the actual temperature thing. I think they wanted to be like called convert temps, something like that. So in here, we will add a new file that will be called convert temps.js. All right. Now I'm at the time now. All right. In fact, let's see if we do this. We go to MPG here and I go to mpg.css. I think I can grab that CSS file. We'll find out in just a second. So let's come in here to temperature again. We'll create another folder, call it CSS. All right, we'll go into that folder. We will make a new file, and we will call it okay. Just going to copy this. All right, and then change the name. All right, so this will be temperature.css. All right, so let me close the MPG. So everything that we've got in here now is in temperature. Good, that's what I wanted to start with. All right, now in our index.html, of course, it's empty. So let's basically, for lack of words, fill this up right now. All right, so again, I'm just creating this from scratch. I'm not going to worry about the meta stuff, etc. that's in here. I'm hoping it's okay. We'll call this temperature converter. Okay, I guess that's a decent enough name. All right, so literally I've got about 20 lines or so that I have to type in, or 20 to 30 lines. So now, what they gave you here, they use the type equal text, but I'm changing it to type equal number, so I don't have to worry about non-numeric input being allowed here. All right, well, believe it or not, we're almost finished here. It should be one more thing I have to do, and that is up here, add my CSS file. All right, let's just see what it looks like right now. I may have missed something. I hope I didn't. All right, so there is what I just built. All right, and we're going to come in right now. That shouldn't be enter Celsius, I don't think, does it? Well, we'll see what it says on the. Nope, that should say degrees. So I'll fix that. But enter F degrees, and that should say um, degrees Celsius there. Okay, we'll fix that, and then we're ready to start typing in some JavaScript. So this should say degrees Celsius. There we go. All right, so let's write it now. Now, again, the idea is, and there's no JavaScript in here right now, but the idea is when I click this button, this changes to enter C degrees, and this changes to degrees Fahrenheit. All right, that's it. Now, if this button is checked, is clicked right now, it stays exactly as it is. If I click this button, they just flip. And the convert is basically should do the temperature conversion. All right, so let's go in and let's add the JavaScript in order to do this. So we're using radio buttons to determine whether we're going from Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit. All right, we're going to modify the DOM so the labels will change when the radio button is clicked. All right, and let's just get going. So under JavaScript here, we've got converttemps.js, which is totally empty right now. That's fine. So we're going to start it with a use strict. All right, and I'm going to do an alias. Now I'm going to create what we could refer to any way we wanted to, but I'm going to call them helper functions. And basically, I'm going to write two functions right now, which are just going to return a temperature, either a temperature converted from Fahrenheit to Celsius or a temperature converted from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And that's the whole first one. So I'm going to have a temperature that's going to be passed in. All right. And I'm going to take that temperature, subtract 32 from it, and multiply it by 5/9. Now, the easiest conversion is 32 because 32 degrees Fahrenheit is 0 degrees Celsius. So if I put in 32 here, 32 minus 32 will be 0 times 5 divided by 9 will still be 0. So that should work. And when we go the other way, it's the temperature times 5 divided by 9 plus 32. We don't need any parentheses in there. We could, but we really don't need any because it's actually going to come in here and do this first and then divide. And then we could do this, but it really isn't going to matter. That's fine. I'll leave that in there. My guess is when I go and save, it's going to remove some of these parens anyway. All right. Now, the key thing that we want to do in here is we want to be able to toggle the display. And what I mean is when we go from one radio button to the other radio button, all right, we want what's in there to change. So let's do that right now. And I just called it that. All right. And label1.text and label2.text literally are from over here. All right. We call the labels somewhere in here. Well, we'll find out if I did it wrong because I see it's degree label 1 and degree label 2, but we'll see. All right. But what we're saying is this is what we'll want to change. All right. Now, we can't just type right now because this is one line of code. So we're returning this, and here we're returning this. Here we've got a bunch that we've got to worry about. All right, so the first thing we want to do is, or what we have to do is we have to update the labels, clear the text. All right, that's the first one. Degree label one dot text content. And this should be label one text and label two text. Okay, we're going to get it to work. This is the same, except it's going to be two. So we want to make sure that the first label either says enter F degrees or enter C degrees. We want to make sure that the second label says either degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit. That's what this is doing. And once we compute a value, we haven't done it yet, so we're just clearing out what would be in there for that computed value. All right. That may not make any sense or very little sense right now, but just give me a second and then hopefully it will. This is amongst the longest ones that we're going to do today, just so you know. All right. And as far as what we're doing for the test on Wednesday, there'll be nothing like this as far as a temperature conversion program. This is meant to just show you one way of doing DOM manipulation. Now, there's certain things that you're going to have to, for lack of better words, just understand. All right, where it says const temp equals parse float. All right, that's in whatever the degrees were. So that's what's in the first text box. We're grabbing the value and we're putting it into text. All right. Now, what we can do here, and I didn't do this, but we could come up here and add a couple more constants up at the top. For instance, const min temp equals -100. Const max temp equal 212. Now, we did not have to do this, but I'm doing something in here because let's face it, if it's less than 100, if it's more than 100 degrees below zero, something's wrong. And if it's hotter than 212, something's wrong. All right. So I've just put those in there. Why? Because now after we put this in, we can check, we can validate the temperature. All right. So I can come in here and say if is NaN temp or was less than the minimum temp, or the temp was greater than the maximum temp. Well, in that case, if any one of those three are, it's an error condition. So we want to notify the user there was an error. We want to clear out the value. All right. And we want to select, basically give that the focus, select that back again. All right. So handle error condition. Now, I'm going to show you something quick. Let me write this line of code and then we're going to look at something. Yeah, we're on word wrap. All right. That line right there, that message content is here. All right. What I mean is right now, that's an empty paragraph. We're going to fill that up possibly with an error message. All right. So that's, for lack of better words, it's kind of like a placeholder right now. All right. So if we had this problem here, we're going to fill that up by putting in that error message. Then we're going to take our degrees computed value and we're going to, we don't want anything to be put in there. All right. Else, well, otherwise, we want to do the calculation. Okay, that should make sense because we put in a valid value. All right, so this is going to handle our invalid situation, and then this else will handle our valid situation. There was no error, so our error area right here, we're going to make sure it has nothing in it. But now we want to compute and display the temperature. But we want to do that based on the radio button that was clicked. So in other words, if the first one was clicked, we want to go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. If the second one was clicked, we want to go from Celsius to Fahrenheit. All right. Otherwise, we want to go the other way. So I'm just going to copy that line. But we don't want to go calculate Celsius. We want to calculate the Fahrenheit temperature. All right. Now, either way, all right, after we get done with this, we want to select the degrees in that text box. So we're going to come in here and do that. And that is it for that routine. Now, do we still have a little bit more? Yes. We've got a couple things that we have to do. All right. We've now figured out which button was clicked. We figured out the temperature, but we haven't displayed it yet. All right. Um, so let's put it this way. We want to be able to toggle that display with the radio buttons. We have to do that, and we have to add our event listeners. Okay. If this doesn't make sense, what this is saying right here, right there, with this one, we'll fix the other one in a minute. But if the first radio button is clicked, it should say enter F degrees in our first label, and it should say degrees Celsius in our second label. All right. Otherwise, we're going the other way. All right. So we'll be going one way or the other. So after the DOM content has been loaded, all right. All right. Finally, the last thing we want to do, one last line, we want to set the focus. Now, the chances of me typing this in and not making a mistake are virtually zero. So we're going to run this and we'll see if it works. And probably it won't. And if it does not, what we'll do immediately is we will come in here and we will debug it. So let me do a file, save all, go back to the index. First, does this work? Well, doesn't look like it. Okay. How about if we put a number in here? All right. That is actually a correct calculation. This, if I say 32 here, that should say 0 there. So 32. Okay, so our math is working, but our buttons are funky. They're not setting as they should. That's okay. We'll fix it then. So let's go to the console and look. Cannot read properties of null on line 53 and on line 15. All right, so let's take a look at those. I think what I am going to do today is whatever I get done, I will save it out there and put it out as a GitHub repo, because this is something that you may find helpful when you're taking the test next week. All right, so started with line 15 here. It said degrees computed. Probably need that. And what was the other one? Line 53. There's a 2 Celsius. What did we call that back here? Too far. Let me change that to Fahrenheit. All right. And let's run it again. And you can see now it's going back and forth. All right. So if I do come in here and put it in a 32 here, I get 0 here. If I go the other way and I put a 0 here and convert, okay, it doesn't like that conversion. All right. So everything is working except that conversion. Degrees entered dot focus is not. So line 56 it doesn't like, and temps in line 9 it doesn't like. Okay, so there's one problem right there. All right, and temps in line 9 right here it doesn't like either. All right, well, let's look at both those. Okay, that should be temp, not temps, so that was an easy fix. All right, what was the other one again? Oops. The other one was right there when we did the focus. Okay, and I don't have my parens in there with a $sign. That's what I think is screwing that one up. So down on the bottom here, again, we'd need $sign, and then that should be in parentheses. All right, let's give it one last run, hopefully, and we'll be done with this one. So it is going back and forth. Again, if I put here, let's put 0. I think this is negative 17.77778 or something like that. There it is. And if I go the other way and I put in here negative 17.7777778 and I convert, all right, well, it doesn't look like that's the right conversion. 22. Well, how about doing it this way? Okay, there's no clear button here. So let's 0. Yep, I guess it is the right conversion. Okay, so everything's now working in here. And again, you will have this one. All right, you will have this one so that you'll be able to take a look at what's in here. All right, so that was the first one. And we're going to keep going through this, and we're going to do it fairly quickly because the only way for me to get through a lot of this stuff is to do it fairly quickly. So if need be, I guess you'd have to watch the video again or whatever to be able to understand it. All right, so that was the first one. The next one, use a test score array. In this exercise, you'll work with an array and you'll add nodes to the DOM to display the results. The interface after clicking it should look like this. So in other words, we've already got in here, we've already got 4 or 5 test scores, it looks like. Ben, Joel, Judy, Ann, and Mike. All right, then they're putting in Mary with a 94, and they have not yet clicked the add to array. All right, or the display results, etc. Okay. And this is, I'd say it's somewhat the same size and the amount that we'll have to type as we typed in for the last one. Actually, there's more, but the good news is we've already got the interface, should already be built. So let's go and bring up 6.2. I closed that. I shouldn't have, but I probably did anyway. All right, so it's test scores. I'm going to open that up with code. All right, and let's take a look at it and see what it, if we run it right now, what it looks like. Okay, there's what we have. Nothing's working. Okay, the field is required and you must have, okay, that's working. So we've got a little bit of stuff in there already. So let's just continue on. I'm going to assume that this is correct. And I'm going to go right into the JavaScript file. All right. But what is, I like to do this. All right. Why? Maybe you think I'm wasting my time or yours, but I like to keep doing this because it's the right thing to do. Make a CSS folder here. Paste it in there. Make a JS folder here. And again, paste that in. Which means just one last thing, and that is I'm going to close this. I won't need that open anymore, but I do have to adjust in this file here to CSS slash and to JS slash. All right, should still work exactly the same. If I bring it up, there shouldn't be any errors. So I'm going to come into here. Now, we've already got a bunch of stuff that's been put in here. All right, you'll notice that they've already created an array for us, and actually two arrays. One array has a list of names. So you can tell, hopefully, when you map these up, Ben got an 88, Joel got a 98, Judy got a 77, and Ann got an 88. All right, then we immediately come in and we set up our, we come in and we set up our alias. Okay, then we've got an add scores that we'll look at in just a moment. All right, and you can see we're doing some validation in here. And if it's valid, we're going to basically add it. All right, so we've already got a bunch of code that's been put in here. Now, that's fine. So you're like, well, what do we need then? Well, we need the ability to actually add that information in. So I'm going to come in, let's just do it right here at the top so you can see it. Now, in just a minute, when we run this, again, in just a minute, when we run this, what you'll see is when we first run it, it'll basically look a lot like what you see right here. Just, you'll have these scores. All right, there should only be 4, not 5, but we'll have those 4 scores in there. Okay, and we might even have this. What we're programming right now is when we add a new name and we add a new score and we click add to array, first of all, that it's added to the array. Second, when we click display results, that the new user is added in here. Same thing with their scores. All right, and if we have a new high score, so you'll notice right now the high is Mike with a 99. But if we go in and add Judy, oh, not Judy, she's in there already. If we add Maggie and we give her 100, it should change the average score, and it should say high score equal Maggie with a score of 100. All right. Now, there are a couple things. We have to put in a name. Again, we could just put in hello there. It doesn't matter. And we have to put in a test score that's considered to be valid. So in other words, that test score must be between 0 and 100. All right. So we just put in this. So what is this doing? All right. Well, as it says here, we're creating an element. What element? Whatever we end up passing in right here. So for instance, if we passed in a P, we'd be creating a new paragraph. If we passed in H1, we'd be making a new H1 right there. All right. And this is the text that's going to be created into that tag name. All right. Or into that element. All right, that better be a D because append chili doesn't make any sense. Then we're going to append it. All right, we're going to append the child, as it says, the text node to wherever we are, and we'll return it. All right, now when we look in here, let's just take a quick look. Const add score. All right, name node equal name. So that's whatever we put in there. All right, and score right now, it's not doing anything. Okay. And it's not doing anything because right now, all right, with where we're getting the user entries, yes, we're getting them, but we're not doing anything with them, so to speak. So I'm going to make some changes here. I'm going to change that from name to name node, and I'm going to change that from score to score node. All right. And we'll just say here that this is name and this will be score. Now, I'm not even going to worry about parse inting it. In other words, it's just going to be this. All right, that is valid thing too. Let me just move this down. All right, so right now, we're grabbing whatever we put in for the name, we're grabbing whatever we put in for the score. That's all we're doing. All right, now I'm going to say name equals name node dot value. So now I'm grabbing whatever we did put in there. Now it's something I can manipulate. And I want to do the same thing with score. And again, that should be name. So this will be, now I can do a parse int on here, and it'll be score node dot value. So now what I have in name is whatever I entered into that first text box. Now with whatever I have in score is whatever I entered into that second text box. Now, if it's a number, even if it's a million, that number is in there. But if I left it blank, or if I put something non-numeric in it, all right, if I did one of those or the other, all right, it's going to have NaN in it right now. That should make sense by now. That should make sense to everybody. Now, again, what I can do is I can come in here and where we are putting in the score, I think it's much cleaner to make that a number field. Now it can only hold two things, a numeric value or blank. All right. Now there is a min and a max that you can use with this, but you can override that manually. So if I put in here min equals 0, max equal 100, what you'd see is as I keep clicking up and clicking up and clicking up to make the number go higher and higher, once it got to 100, it would stop. When I clicked to keep getting it lower and lower and lower, when I got to 0, it would stop. But I could still manually enter in a number that was less than 0 or greater than 100. The reason that I'm telling you that, the reason that that is important, all right, is, excuse me, we have to make sure that we're doing total validation here. All right, so we've got our is valid equal true. If name is empty, all right, we're saying in here name, next element sibling, text content. Well, there's nothing wrong with saying this field is required. That's totally fine. But why don't we say, please enter a name? Makes it a little easier, I think, for the person to understand. Now, is valid is false because we left it blank. All right. Otherwise, we want to make sure there's nothing where that asterisk was. We want nothing in there. It's totally fine. All right. Now we're validating here. So we're coming in now and we're validating to make sure that the score that we entered was valid. So if it's empty or it's less than 0 or it's greater than 100, again, same exact stuff. All right. Now we've got here a bunch of stuff that we're doing if it is valid. We'll look at that in just a minute. Okay. But I'm looking here. So let's see. I think that everything we put in there is okay. Let's move this over. So if it is valid, we're going to add a new name to our names array. We're going to add a new score to our scores array. All right. But this isn't what we're working with anymore. We're working with name node and we're working with score node. So name node dot value and score node dot value. All right. And then we can say name node dot focus. Did we have to do it that way? The answer is kind of, because we're working with the DOM. We want to be able to come in here and dynamically add things to our program. And if we weren't doing that, all right, if we weren't coming in and doing that, I think we'd have problems. All right. All right. So we've got everything, but if you look in here, we're never displaying the results. So let's write that now. So when we first start, we're assuming, we've just started. So we're going to have to run through this in a loop. All right. But we don't know yet what this total number, our score total is. We don't know what our high score is, who has the high score, or what our average is. All right. So we're going to put that into a loop. That will add the scores. Okay. Now we have to check to see if we have a new high score. So we come in here and we're at right here, we're adding to our score total, the current score. Then we have to check and see, is the current score greater than our what it right now is our high score? Right? Is it higher than that? And if it is, it becomes our new high score. And we have to associate the name with that high score. All right. Now we have to calculate our average. We won't even worry about a decimal. We'll just do it to the whole number. All right. So we've got all of that done. What's left? Okay. Well, again, we figured out everything, but remember, this is called display results. We haven't displayed anything yet. We've said a bunch of stuff, but we haven't displayed it. What this is doing right here, if this confuses you, we're calling that create element with text, which is what we wrote at the beginning up here. So what we're saying is we wanted to make a new H2 and the text in there will be results. So let's assume that Maggie, as we said, put in 100 and that's our highest score. So this will now put in a paragraph that says high score equals Maggie with a score of 100. All right. We'll finish this one up and then we'll take a break. This, unfortunately, is like I said, it's a fairly long routine. And we're not done yet. In English, this is saying if our H2 is undefined, meaning we don't have anything in it, just fill it up. All right. Otherwise, there already is something in it. So we want to do a replace child because we've got a new, we'll have a new average and we'll have a new high score. There is nothing on your test, in my opinion at least, that's to this complexity. Now, the last thing that we just created was called display results, but we also have to display the score. The scores. After we do that, I'll do a little manipulation here and then we're done. This isn't real long. So that'll clear out anything we had in there. Now, if you go back and look at this, you'll notice, okay, what we did before, this was display results, was to show us everything that's in here. All right. Now we're doing display scores, which is everything that's in there. All right. This is not add scores anymore. This is called display results. Lose someone? Nope. And again, the chances of me typing this in and not making any mistakes along the way are not good, but we're going to run it now and check anyway. No, that's not a great start. Line 99 and line 74. All right, here is the one problem up here. Well, we'll fix it in a minute. Hold on. I want to see the first error that was in here. So that was in line 74. And may not like the triple equal sign there. I originally had a double equal sign because we're checking for undefined. So that I might need that. All right. Let's see. We've got a display score. We've got a display results there. Let's see if still giving us an error. Not getting anything. All right, still 99 and 74. Selector and add event listener. That's actually correct, but it doesn't like it. And what else doesn't it like? It doesn't like this add event listener here. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to sit here. It's 9:12. So I'm going to give you till 9:25 to take a break. And if anybody wants to stick around and watch, I'm going to see if I can debug this during the break. And then hopefully we can come back and look at the last example here for chapter 6. All right. So come back, please, at 9:25. Hmm. All right, it is 9:25. Let me explain. This is working now. We were missing one of the buttons in here, and that's why we were getting that error. So in the HTML, one of the actual buttons was missing, and that's why it was giving us that error. Errors were just spelling on my part. I had here, again, instead of a pen child, I had a pen chili, which was silly, but I had that in there. What else? I'd spelled something else wrong in here as well. All right. But what should happen now, do a save all here, and let's run it again. All right. If I do display the results right now, it's those four that are in there. Joel with a high score of 98, and there they are. Joel, or Ben, Joel, Judy, and Ann. So if I come in here and I add, let's just say Mark, and Mark didn't do well. He got a 34. I add it to the array. If I display the results, they don't change because that's not a new high score. But if I display the scores, there's Mark. And if I come in here and say Mary, and Mary did get 100, and I add her to the array, now this should change to Mary with a score of 100. Oh, and it didn't. I don't know why. We'll check on that in a moment. But it is putting it in here. So it is not figuring out when we've got a new high score. Wow, I tried that before and it looked like it worked. Let's go back and look again. This is where it's happening. If scores LCV, so that's in that for loop. And like I said, to my knowledge, at least, that is, to my knowledge, that is correct. So let's see. All right. Scores. Total, that seems to be okay. That's actually correct code. Because what this is saying is if the current score that we're reading in here is greater than the high score, and that we put in 100, and that should be higher than 98, so the high score should become that new score, and the name associated with that should be from the names array, which we should be adding. Now it is adding her, but that particular check is not working. All right, I'm just going to throw an alert in here. It might look a little funky when we run this now. All right, current score is an 88, then a 98, then a 77, then an 88, and we get a 98. That's correct. All right, but now if I come in here and again we put in Mary with a 100, and we said to add it to the array and then display the results, 88, 98, 77, 88. It should show 100 right now. 100. All right, and if we display the results, it's showing everybody. We display the scores. She's being added, but that is not changing. So this line right here, this high score name, is not being reset. So let's double check. And where we had that for loop was make sure it was called high score name, and it is. Spell the same. And names should be the name of our array. If it wasn't, we'd be getting an error message, names and scores. I promise to look at this right after class before I post it, but I don't see anything that looks wrong with that. All right, so everything is working except it's not showing a new high score. Don't know why. What if we try it one more time just to be sure? 99. Get rid of that too. Okay, it didn't like the 100. All right, so that might mean my check there is wrong. So display the scores and they're all in there. All right, so for some reason it didn't like the 100, which says I should check. That's correct though, greater than 100. And we didn't put in, we could have put in constants, but that we didn't have to. Or scores greater than 100. Well, it doesn't like something with the number 100, and I don't know why it wouldn't. That doesn't make any sense to me, but again, I'll take a look at it right after class. All right, let's go on to the next one. Again, you will get all these. All right, and now we have now looked at the, from here, let's see, the, let's see. These are the short exercises. And for the start, all right, then we've got this. Modify this FAQs application. All right, so modify the facts one. This exercise lets you make a minor modification to the FAQs app. When you're done, the application should work exactly the same as it did previously, except that only one answer can be displayed at a time. In other words, if the user to display an answer, and so if I click on this right here, then this should be displayed, but what's in here should disappear. All right, that's what they're saying. All right. Now I'm going to have to do something a little weird here, so just bear with me for a second. So in here, Or the extra, that's what I thought. Extra 6.3. Exercise is short. All right, I'm gonna have to go grab it from Muroc's site. So this is the FAQs that's right here. I'm going to copy that over to here. Fix it the way I always do. And I'm going to remove everything that's in here. It's not very long, as you can see. And we'll reproduce that right now. All right. So I'm going to have to go into my HTML file here and change this. So I'm pathing to that correctly. And change it at the bottom here so I'm pathing to that correctly. All right. So those are fixed. If we run it, it won't do anything. Oh, I guess it does. All right, we're going to fix it though to make sure it works the way it's supposed to work. So let me get started on this. Again, it's not a very long program here. So this FAQs, oh, it is still in there. That's the problem. Let's do this. Let's just go over this. All right, it works, but let's go over it and we'll talk about what it means. All right, the use strict should be obvious by now. Setting up our alias should be obvious by now. All right, then we've got something that we're calling toggle. All right, now move these comments over so you can see them. As it says, event is what just happened. The current target represents what we just clicked on. So the H2 element that's right there is the one we just clicked on right here. All right, that's what this is saying right here. The associated div element is that div element that goes along with it. So in other words, it's like why use jQuery, and then there was a paragraph after that. The why use jQuery would be the H2 element. Then the answer to why use jQuery would be the div element. All right. All right. Move these over. All right. Remove any class attributes from all the other nodes. So in other words, all right, we want to select everything. We're selecting all the H2s here. And what we're saying is, all right, when we find the one we're looking for, that one should be open and everything else should be closed. All right. Again, there'll be nothing exactly like this on the test. You'll have to take my word for it. Now this toggles it. So it's kind of what you think it would be. All right. It says toggle the H2 in the sibling div. Well, if it's the minus, it's open. So in other words, if it's the plus, it's closed. All right, this, as it says, cancels the default H2 action. All right, and then we just set this stuff up. So look what we're doing here. This will get every H2 tag associated with an ID of FAQS. Only getting one H2. All right, it's getting query selector all, but so it's all the ones that are under the ID of FAQS. So if we look in here, now notice we got an H2, we got an H2, etc. All right, well, let's come up here and notice right at the beginning, ID equals FAQS. So that's that H2 and that H2 and that H2. So we've got three of them. And the divs hold the paragraphs that answer what is jQuery, or why is jQuery so popular, or what is JavaScript. All right. So that's grabbing all the H2s. This, as it says, is attaching a handler. What we've done in the past is we've attached a handler to buttons. Now we're attaching the handler. We are attaching it to the actual H2 element. We're adding an event listener to that says when we click it, call the toggle method, meaning that if it had a plus sign and it wasn't showing anything, give it a minus sign and show what's there. Plus, if there was anything there previously, get rid of it. All right, what I mean is that the text that's there, just don't show it. And this will set the focus. So again, we've set the focus before, but we've always been setting it on like a text box or something like that. This says, hey, in our H2, the first H2 element that's in there, set the focus to the child, to its first child. So again, when I come in here and run this, that's why that's highlighted right now. All right. And again, you'll notice that when we click on it, we click on another one, what was in here goes away. All right. For some reason, it should be, I believe, picking up the plus and the minus sign. All right. But it looks like it's not. But it is working. Again, as soon as you click on one, it closes whatever's open on the other one, and it opens then what's here. All right. And again, you will have all three of these when we get done. All right, let's go to the other ones. And that is the exercise short. Now, this first one that's here is a little more symbolic of the kind of stuff that we're going to be working on the rest of the day today and tomorrow. All right, now you look here and you go, well, we already did these. No, these are different ones. All right, let's look at this one to start with. All right, again, as I always do, I just want to fix this up. All right, let's run it and see what it does right now, if anything. So this is your typical miles per gallon program. When you run it, now it says miles driven must be a valid number greater than 0. Okay, so we'll put in here 45. Now we should get the same message, but with gallons used. We do. So let's put in a 2. All right, so it is working, and the clear entries is working. All of it's working. So let's see what it is we're supposed to be doing in here. All right, again, this is the MPG, where the exercise is short, not the extra, but the short. For chapter 6, upgrade the miles per gallon application. So that is this one right here. So in this exercise, you'll upgrade the version so that the error message are displayed in span elements to the right, so right here, rather than being displayed as alerts. And most people will tell you, you may or may not agree with this, but most people will tell you that when you work with alerts, for lack of better words, they're kind of disturbing. All right, they're what are known as being intrusive. All right, because they're modal, so you have to answer them before you can go on. All right, so this is what we want to have happen. We want to replace those alerts that we have with these messages. Okay, and actually, at least as far as I'm concerned, that makes at least some sense. All right, so let's start in here. Let's start by going back to the HTML file right here. And you'll notice if we look in here that right now, we don't have any spans. All right, so I'm gonna add those here, a span with an asterisk, and then I'm going to add another one after gallons. Now, right now, they're not doing a flaming thing. They're doing nothing, but they're there. All right. The other thing I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to come back over here to my CSS, and I don't know if I've done anything. Well, spans should be red. Let's make them bold too. So font weight, bold. All right. All right. So if we do come back here now and we run this, we did not have these before. Those two asterisks there and there were not here before. It still works the same way as it did. We don't want that. We don't want that error to come there. We want an error to come over here. All right, so we're part of the way there. All right, so let's take a look at the JavaScript. Shouldn't need the CSS anymore. All right, looks like we've got a bunch of stuff in here already added for us. So as always, we're starting with our use strict and setting up an alias. All right. So this should make sense, this thing that's in here, that must be a valid number. But that's what we're doing. And I believe that what we're doing with that is we are setting it up and we are calling it with with an alert. I don't think we're even going to need this in just a minute. Just in case, I'm going to comment it out. All right. And I don't need this focus and select anymore either. So I'm going to comment that out as well. All right. So I'm down to here. Now we've got our calculate MPG. That looks good. We've got our process entries. Well, here we're inputting our miles per gallon. Here we're inputting, I'm sorry, our miles driven. Here we're inputting our gallons used. That looks good. All right. Let's come in here and let's add an is valid. So we will assume it's true. All right, so let is valid equal true. It's gray because we're not using it. And if our miles is not numeric or it's less than 0, all right, we don't want to do an alert anymore with a focus and select. Here's where we're going to do our DOM manipulation now. All right, so I don't need this anymore. And even though it's kind of bloat now, I'm going to leave it in there like this and like this. All right, but this is what we now want to do. We want to say miles, all right, dot next elements sibling So it's what's next to it, which is the span dot first child dot node value. And that's equal to, even though it'll wrap, I'm going to hit enter anyway. And I'm going to put in here miles driven must be a valid number greater than 0. All right. And then we're going to do the same thing for our gallons. So again, I just commented that out, but we'll put that in here, and now we'll say gallons. Next sibling dot node value. I didn't grab this. I thought I did. Now it'll say gallons used. Must be a valid number greater than 0. All right. So we've now checked them both. And you say, well, okay, fine. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't want anything to be in either one of those. So in other words, okay, we don't want there to be any, we don't want there to be anything in either one of those spans. So else, I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to grab both of these. And I want nothing in there, so it equals nothing. And I want the same thing for gallons. I want both of those. This is where those error messages would appear, but I want both of them instead to hold nothing. All right, well, that should work. All right, so that's all fine. Now, is valid was set to true. All right, if we do one of these, well, what didn't we do here? Well, wouldn't it be nice to say, is valid equal false? Let me remove all this extraneous code. So I'm going to get rid of, all right, and this, and this. All right, so this is our, let's put in here, validate miles driven. So that's what we're doing there. All right, here, I'll put this on a new line by itself. So we can put another comment here that says validate gallons used. All right. We've now done both of those. All right. So otherwise, valid values for both, all right, for both miles driven and gallons used. So what does that mean? We can now calculate the miles per gallon, better known as MPG. All right, so we've done all those now. Okay, so MPG value equals this. All right, clear entries, miles looks fine, gallons looks fine, MPG looks fine, but we also, again, want to clear both of these when we click clear. But now when we do that, we don't want to set them back to this. We want to set them back to an asterisk. All right. And then finally, we've got our event listeners for calculate, for clear, and then setting the focus. I think we're done, unless I screwed up something. So let's do a save all and let's come back. Now they're here, but now when I put nothing in here, good, we get must be a number. I'll make that smaller. All right. Let's just change it to must be greater than 0. And then if we put in something here, you get the same thing. And if we do put in a 3 here, should get 111. We do, and the clear works. So everything is working. I'm just going to change the message and make it a little smaller. Let's run it one last time. If we put nothing in here, oh, miles driven must be great. Now, only one of these is going to be hit, even if they're both blank, because they're in two different, this is in an if and that's in the else if. All right. If I do put a valid value in here, now it should come back in here and it should say gallons used must be greater than 0. And it does. Now that should have cleared and it didn't. All right, so we have to make sure that that's the case. All right. And if we put a number in there, that looks correct. All right. And if we clear, it does go back. All right. What I didn't like was if we put in something here and then we change it, that didn't go away. All right, let's look at the code and see if we can make it go away. All right. If it's non-numeric or we put in something, okay. So I don't know if there's a way to do that. Actually, there is. Let's change this. We'll just make this an else. And then this is going to have to be an if there. All right, so we'll say else. And I just want to make sure that that has nothing in it. All right, so if it was non-numeric or it was less than 0, meaning we left it empty or put in a negative number, we should get that. It should set is valid to false. Otherwise, it should just remove what's there because there was no error. So we're going to have to change this one as well. So I'll make that an else. And we will grab this. And say that that is equal to nothing. All right, now that gave us an error on the bottom here. So we have to change our test here that says if is valid. Now it should work the way we want it to. Notice we get both errors now. If I put in a valid number, okay, well, it's doing that, which we don't want it to do. All right, so we'll have to look at that. I mean, it's still going to work. All right, but it did everything there. All right, so let's see. So if this is the case, then is valid is equal to false, right? Does this, I didn't put if here, I didn't put it the same thing. Is valid equal false. All right, after all that time and effort, it should now work exactly the way we want it to. So they both show. If I get rid of this one, now that's gone, but that shows. If I get rid of this one, that's gone, but that shows. And if I get a valid number here, that works. My clear works. Everything works. All right, that was a fairly simplistic example. All right, so let's look at the next one. So we did the MPG. All right, let's open up. I don't know which one they said was next. Display a test score array. Well, this is similar to what we did before. All right. Although here we're just displaying the scores. All right, you'll start with declarations for two arrays, a names array and a scores array. You'll add an event handler that displays the names and the scores in the text area. You know what? This is virtually the same program we did before, but it's simpler because all it's right here, what it's not doing is it's not displaying the high score. So I'm going to give you this one later, but I'm not going to do it because it's going to be so much replication of what we've already done. All right. So there were two of them here. Let's see what's left then. We did these extras. We're on the shorts now. We just did the miles per gallon. This one I said is very similar to the one we already had. So let's look at this one, 7.1. This is preload images and use a timer. All right. Preload images and use a timer. All right. It's also known as an image rollover type of program. So again, that's what we're going to do in just a second. Just setting the other machine that I have here. All right, so we're doing a rollover. And again, this is not a very long program. So the idea is when we take our mouse and put it over either one of these, the images are going to change. All right. So again, just like I did before, let me go back here. Oh, I've got that there or that. Fantastic. There it is. All right, so this will be that rollover. And since I did not bring up the answer, I think there's nothing in the JavaScript. Well, there is stuff in the JavaScript. Let's see if it works right now. All right, I must have given you the answer. I don't want to bring up that one. I want to do it in front of you, so let me get rid of this. Thought that was the one I just copied over, but we'll look at it right now. So these are pictures. I'm going to just get rid of everything that's in here. So we're sure we're starting from the beginning. And with our index file here, let's see. This will be CSS/ rollover, and that will be JS/ rollover. All right. So file, save all. Now when I run this, nothing should happen because there's no JavaScript in there, to my knowledge. And you can see nothing happens. It's exactly what we want because we're going to write the JavaScript code. It's not much. It's only about 30 lines or so. All right. So we'll write that, and then I think it'll be time for another break. All right. As always, we're going to start out with a use strict. Now, in this particular example, we're not going to need this. All right. In fact, what we want to do is as soon as the DOM loads, we want to do what we want to do. In other words, we want it to go through the images. And if we take our mouse and put it over either image, we want the other, that image to change. So we're going to literally put our add event listener right here. And what we're going to say, we're going to do all of it right in here. And what does that mean? That means that as soon as the DOM loads, we want this to run. All right. So the first thing we have to do is we have to come in and process each image tag. Now, you may have noticed in here, I'm using this. This is called an abbreviated for loop. I'm using what's called a for in or a for of. We could just use regular for loops. These are just shortcuts for lack of better words. All right, this is another way you can go through an entire array. So this is basically saying for each image, what do we want to do here? So what we're going to end up doing again is flipping. So again, when you looked in here and you saw this, in fact, let's show it on here. All right. When you take your mouse and you put it over either one of these, it's going to flip to the other two images. Now I've got here preload the rollover image. You may or may not remember this. We did talk about it earlier, and that is that if you preload images, what you're telling it to do is before you actually let the program run, you want to make sure the images are shown. If you don't do that, and I don't think in this particular example it would matter because these are relatively simple images, but if you've got very intricate images with a lot of color and a lot of detail to them, what can happen if you don't preload the images is the program will come up faster, but you'll get kind of a ghost of an image and you'll see it start to fill in. That's not considered a very wise thing to do. So you'll notice here, rollover image.source equals the new one. For lack of better words, what this is basically doing is it's loading in all 4 of the images. It's making sure they're all available at the start of the program. So this is saying when you do a mouse over, and again, we'll put the code right in here, and it's saying basically like, what do you want to do when there's a mouse over? All right. And what I'm saying is when you have a mouse over like this, all right, that what you want to do, trying to figure out why it doesn't like the curly brace there. That's why. There we go. All right. So when you put the mouse over there, what do you want to do? All right. And then we're just going to flip the other one. So when it's a mouse out, so I can just copy this and say not mouse over, but mouse out. We're just going to send it back to the old one. We're just telling it to flip. So when the mouse is in there, all right, go to the new URLs. Otherwise, go back to the old URLs. That's almost everything. A little bit more to do here. All right, we have to display a new image after 1 second or display the old image. And we'll do that after 2 seconds. So what we're saying is if you take your mouse and you put it over an image, wait a second, then display the new one. If you move your mouse out, wait 2 seconds and then bring the old one back. And that actually should be everything. Let's see if it works. Of course it doesn't. All right, so let's debug it. DOM content loaded is not defined. Okay. Oh, I didn't put double quotes around the DOM content loaded. Should fix it. Let's see. Now, there could be other errors that just weren't found yet. So, and it looks like there are. That's all right. We'll just work our way down here. Images is not defined in line 5. All right. And I think it's because I left a line out. We'll look right now. That's true. We're setting let image of images, and images was never defined. So let's define it. So that is defining our images for us. Let's try it again. Nope. Line 17. Event listener is not a function. And it's because it's not event listener, it's add event listener. There actually is an event listener as well, which we'll talk about at another time. And it looks like it's working. So taking this one from the top then, all right. I don't think there's anything new in here that we have to go over as far as what's in the HTML. All right. Well, let's go over what's in the JavaScript. All right. So our use strict, and again, this one's different because we're doing everything, boom, as soon as the content's been loaded. So we create this thing called images. Remember, with the query selector all, what it is doing is it's going through everything that's in there, these image rollovers. All right. Then, as it says, we want to process each one. So in this for loop that basically makes up the entire program, we're telling it let image of images to cycle through an image at a time. All right. And as it says there, we've got the old URL, okay, and we've got the new URL. All right. We preload the images. So in other words, what we're saying is we want all of these images to be loaded by the time the program starts. All right. Then when we do a mouse over, so if we put our mouse on something, show the new one. When we leave, show the old one. And we're setting timers on these. I mean, we could set these, you could put it in there, for example, a quarter of a second. You could put in there 250 and it would go like that. You probably wouldn't even notice it. Or again, if you were doing this for maybe somebody older, you'd want to do 3 and 4. All right. And it's going to almost look a little funky doing it like that. And it still looks like it's coming out pretty fast. All right. But that's it. So we've now looked through, everything basically that's in here for chapters 6 and for chapter 7 for the for the short, but we did not yet develop the clock app and add a stopwatch to the clock application. Okay, it's 10:18. Let's take 12 minutes and we'll come back in 12 minutes and we'll do those. All right. Let me clean this up during the interim. All right, it's 10:30. Uh, this is basically the same program done twice, but the second time there's things added to it. So first we're going to build this digital clock. All right, then I'm going to take the entire folder and I'm going to copy it so that when we go and add the stopwatch, we've already got the clock. So all we have to add is the stopwatch. All right. Right now, if I run this, the only thing it shows is you may or may not be able to even see that, but there are two sets of colons right there. And that'll be the, you'll have the hour colon, the minute colon, etc. All right. So that's what we have in here right now. I've moved everything over. So let's come in and bring up the JavaScript, and there's nothing in there, as you can see right now. Not a real long program, to be honest with you. So, all right, what do I use strict? And to be honest with you, I'm probably going to make that worth a couple points on the test. That every single problem, and there's 3 problems on the test, that every single one of those problems in your JavaScript, you start it with use strict. All right, I might make it worth 2 points each problem. I don't know. Maybe I'll make it worth 5 points total. I don't really know. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our own little function. And when I say little, it'll just be one line. What we want to make sure is when we are showing the clock, all right, that, for instance, in here, all right, we'll have a leading 0. Notice how it doesn't say 3:5. We could put it here at the beginning. I don't think we did, but I think we've got the leading 0 here, and I think we've got the leading 0 here. All right. And to do that, we're just going to use what a built-in JavaScript function that's called pad start. So let me write it. And again, all that's saying is, if necessary, add a leading zero. That's it. All right. Now, what we're going to write next is we're going to write a routine that's going to display the current time. And that's its job. All right. Nothing has to be passed in. So notice what we're doing here. We're saying now equal new date. That gives us both the current date and the current time. This will give us the hours. All right, but it gives us the hours in military time. So I'm going to have this thing called AM PM, and we'll default it to AM. And if we need to, we'll change it to PM in just a bit. So if the hours are greater than 12, well, just what I told you. Convert from military time. And we do that simply by just saying hours minus equal 12. And then the AM PM is, you know that it's going to be PM now because it's afternoon or evening. All right. Well, if that's not the case, so else, all right, all we have to worry about here, because the things that are here that are a little goofy, so to speak, are midnight and noon. All right. We want to make sure if it's noon that it's PM, and that already should be, but we'll check it anyway. And if it's midnight, all right, it's going to end up being 0. So we want to make sure that's set to AM. So we'll do a switch on the hours. All right, in case 12. And again, what does that mean? It means it's noon. All right, so the AM PM is equal to PM, just to be sure, and we'll break. Case 0, well, again, then we know it's midnight. So the AM PM is AM, and actually the hours is 12. We want to say 12 AM. And again, we can break. All right, that was pretty easy. Now we've got to display it. So then finally our AM PM. All right, finally, we need our event listener. Now, what do we want to do here? We want to set the initial clock display, and we want to set the timer so that every second it updates. All right. So the clock is just going to run. So literally all you have to do is say display current time and set interval to call display current time every second. That should be it. Let's run it and see if it works. And there it goes. All right. Now, if the time was different, all right, well, watch when the seconds gets over. And you'll notice the leading zero is put there. All right. We didn't put a leading zero in for the hours. We could do that as well, but I don't see really the need to do that. All right, but it looks like it's working just fine. So again, to quickly take a look at what we had. All right, set up our alias, had set this up again that just said, all right, if something is 2 characters long, if necessary, pad it with a beginning 0. We display the current time by calling a new or instantiating a new date object, which gives us the date and the time. All right, we grab from the time the hours using a get hours. This AM PM, we could have called it anything, but since it holds AM or PM, that seemed to make sense. Then if the hours was greater than 12, since we're getting it military time, so instead of being 10:41 AM as it is, if it was 10:41 PM, it would be 22:41. So since that would be greater than 12, we would subtract 12, making it 10, but putting in the PM. Okay, then again, we switched on the hours and then just displayed the time. All right. And that's displaying it. But if we didn't do this, it would display it once and it would just have that time there. So this is giving us the current time. And then we're telling it, call it again every second. All right. So that is everything. So let me do a file save all here, file save, close this. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. This clock stopwatch, I'm going to remove everything that's in there. And I'm going to take the clock that we have and I'm going to copy all of that over. Oops, paste. All right. So as of right now, at least, these two things are identical. So if I do bring up, let me close this one. I guess it was closed. All right, let's open this one in code. And if we go in, it's all set for us already. And if we do run it, it should look just the same as the other one did. There. But what we don't have in here now is our stopwatch capability. Not a lot of code, 30 lines, 40 lines, I don't know. But we'll put that in right now. So again, we've got all that stuff in here. I'm going to leave it all right where it is. Everything. All right. I'll move my add event listener down because that's historically it's down put at the bottom, even though it wouldn't have to be. But I'm going to set up, I'll just put it here, set up stopwatch. Okay. And we're going to have elapsed minutes and elapsed seconds in here. And milliseconds. So those are all set to 0. All right. And if you do look at what was in the book here, all right, those are the milliseconds right here. Whoops. Right here. So this is 0 minutes, 8 seconds, and 610 milliseconds. That's why we're setting that third one here. All right. And that's not 1, that's or 100, that's 1000 because that says that a second has elapsed. Okay, so that's the first check we have to make. Now we have to also make another check. And we have to say that if the seconds is equal to 60, we want to increment the minutes by 1 and reset the seconds to 0. So let me just grab all of this and I'll make the changes accordingly. Okay. So we've got both of those set. Now we can display the stopwatch time. I guess it's the new time. Now, I did do this, and I think I screwed up in one place here, and that is when I went in and I added this, this has got everything for the time, but it doesn't have the stuff in there for the stopwatch. So I've got to go find that. See, this is what we don't have in here is this. In fact, I'm just going to grab everything that's in main just to make sure I've got it. And I will change what I had in there. So I will remove that and replace it with this. All right. And I know that's two means, but there we go. All right. So now it's not done yet, but now I've got my stuff for my stopwatch. Okay, I didn't previously, and that's why I did that. And this is calling what? All right, it's still clock. All right, so I have in here display new stopwatch time. And we'll call our pad single digit. All right, so that is set up all of that. All right, there's a few things we have to do now because if you remember what the stopwatch has on it is we've got to start, we've got to stop, and we've got to reset. Well, those haven't been written yet. So we're not going to be able to do anything as of right now with with these. And notice they're all hyperlinks. So one thing we're going to want to do is an EVT.prevent default. We don't want this to go anyplace. All right, so let's write those three routines. All right. And after we do, we'll have to add a little bit to our event listener, and that should be it. So we got a start, a stop, and a reset. Okay. So we'll have a const start stopwatch guess that's one word. And I'm just going to put the other ones in there just so I don't forget them. So we've got a start. We'll have a stop. And we'll have a reset. All right, so let's write those now. All right, now we want to do the first tick of the stopwatch to get it started. All right, and then we want it to update every 10 milliseconds. It should have been written up here if I spelled them the same. So tick stopwatch, good. And then we want to basically so again, when you start it, what it should do now, all right, and I think that would probably work if we started it now. I don't know. See? No, it's not because we don't have the event listeners. But what it's going to end up doing is it's going to start. So you'll have basically 10 milliseconds. Then every 10 milliseconds, it'll add 10 more milliseconds. All right. Then we've got our stop, which again will start with an EVT dot prevent default. And all we want to do is stop the timer. All right. Whoops. So that's it for that one. So what's left to do then is the reset. Well, if they do press reset, if they do, okay. Event T dot default. All right, but if they have done it, we want to make sure we clear the interval again. Might have already been cleared, but it won't hurt anything. All right, then we have to reset the stopwatch variables. All right, so the elapsed minutes is going to be set equal to 0. The elapsed seconds is going to be set equal to 0. And the elapsed milliseconds is going to be set equal to 0. Finally, if you remember when it starts, these should all be 0 when we start. They're not right now. Okay, so we'll reset those to just zeros, and then so that'll be 0, 0, that'll be 0, 0, and that'll be 0, 0, 0. One sign there. All right. So the only thing left now is to go into our event listener. Okay. This is all set up. That's fine. But we don't have the stuff set up for the stopwatch. So we have to come in here and this will set up the stopwatch event handlers. We didn't need a comment before, but I'll put one in here now that says set up the clock event handlers, because that's all we had in there before. So it's 3 more lines and then we can run it and see if I've made any mistakes. So if we click the link that says start, we want to call start stopwatch. All right. If we click the link that says stop, we want to call stop stopwatch. And finally, if we click the link that says reset, we want to call reset stopwatch. All right, that should be everything. So let's run it and see if indeed it works or doesn't work. Shouldn't be a problem with this because that's the same code as before. Start, nothing's happening. All right, see if we can figure out why. Failed to execute a query selector on documents. Stop is not a valid selector. All right, and clock, line 3. And tick stopwatch is not defined in line 68. Let's look at that one first. So tick stopwatch. I think it's because I didn't write as tick stopwatch. Let's move back up into here. And here we set everything. Oh, there's tick stopwatch. Everything should be there. Tick stopwatch. Tick stopwatch. Looks like it's spelled the same. It's open right here as well. That's the line we just copied from before. Let's take a look at both those then. Use strict, that's fine. Selector document. That looks fine. Oh, that is not good. Let's see what that does. Still isn't doing anything. That was an error though, so that had to be fixed. Tick stopwatch is not defined. SMS. Well, I did it here too. Looks like. Oh, I got a capital W there. It should be a lowercase w. That's the problem. Let's let the system find it for me. There it is. It's put in there as a capital. Try one last time. All right, notice it went, there's 2 seconds, 3 seconds. See, we'll let it go to a minute, make sure that the minute goes up by 1. And if this works, that'll be it then for today. And tomorrow I will pick it up and I'm going to write 3 more apps for you that I'm thinking are going to be more along the lines of what your test will be. And I will put these out there. I won't have this out there until this afternoon because I want to fix that error that was in the one program. However, I'm not going to have time before my other class starts because I've got to prepare an assignment for them. So you will have it out there by the end of the day, all of these chapter 6 and 7 work. So let's see now. 57. Let's see if it goes up by a minute. 59. There it did. Good. So we can stop, reset. Everything's working. Fantastic. All right. Thanks to those of you who sat around and listened. That's all I've got for today. Again, tomorrow, what I plan on doing, just so you know, and I put this down before, but I want to say it again, is there it is. So tomorrow we'll go over the BMI.js, the guessinggame.js, and a trip calculator, which is basically adding a little bit onto the miles per gallon program. And I'm going to attempt to do that, use document object model manipulation and some of the stuff we talked about today, and even some timers if I can have a chance to put those in. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow morning at 8:05. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks.